Welcome to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series. Today, we have the pleasure of having Satauna with us. Thank you for joining us, Satauna.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. This is going to be so much fun.
We were just talking earlier about our whisper rooms talking to each other. It seems like some sort of mind meld, sort of Inception thing.
Yeah, right? I know. We were doing something else together the other day, you and me, and we discovered that both of us have whisper rooms. Not only that, we both have the same size whisper rooms because you can, you can get different sizes.
Yes. Yeah. For our audiences that don't know, a whisper room is a recording studio that's kind of, how would you describe it, Satauna?
I call it the Hobbit Hole. Mine is it's a 4x6 booth, and it's, there's foam, but there's felt, and it's probably covered over by wood. And mine has a patch bay in it. So there are 4 1/4-inch in inputs or outputs, whatever you want to do, and then 4 XLRs. Okay, I'm totally already.
Oh, we're geeking out.
How long?
The tech audience is like, tell me more.
Places to plug cables in. So the holes are on the inside of the booth. And then if you go over on the wall on the outside of the booth, the holes are on the outside so that you don't have a bunch of cables running all over the floor and through the booth. And although, 8 cable plug-ins is not enough. So we still drilled an extra hole, and there's, it's not enough, but yeah. It's nice. this booth, and it comes on a pallet. And you, like I said, I'm in my basement, so I remember this big pallet and dragging. We didn't bring the pallet downstairs because it wouldn't fit. So just my husband and I taking pieces of the booth off the pallet and just carrying piece by piece downstairs.
Oh, wow.
And screwing the whole thing together. It took us a few hours, and we put it all together. It was really fun.
Very cool. And those things are as light as cardboard, aren't they?
Oh yeah, right. Feathers.
Staying in the basement, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Very cool. Well, we'd love to talk to you a little bit about your audio description narration, whether in that booth or wherever. Can you share a little bit about your experience with audio description as a narrator?
So I was born blind. I don't have any sight at all. And so I am an audio description narrator, but also a consumer of audio description, which is pretty fun, which means I'm pretty opinionated about it too, I suppose.
Goes both ways.
Yeah. So I think one of the first projects I ever did was for the Washington Monument back in 2013. There's a kiosk there. There's a touchscreen kiosk. And that kiosk has information about every one of the stones in the monument.
Oh, wow.
And, what the picture is on the stone or the emblem or whatever, and what the text says and all that kind of stuff. And so I got to read all of that text and the description of what was on each one. And that was really, really fun. Yeah, that was I think that was one of the first things I did.
Wow. And the first thing, it's what a legacy too, that's there. That's history right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never actually been to see it one of these days.
Ah, cool.
One of these days. Yeah.
So
assuming it hasn't changed, you have no idea,
Gotcha. So, and one of the things that's so cool that I'm learning about audio description is it's obviously beyond just series and movies. Like you said, the Washington Monument or museums, or what other, can we go off on a little tangent there? Like what other places have audio description that maybe some people might not know of? Putting you on the spot.
Parks, like national parks. So some places with trails will have description on the trail.
Oh, cool.
Let's see, where have I been? I've been to plays that have it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, museums like you were talking about. And some museums do it really interestingly where it's sort of kind of, more integrated into what they're already saying anyhow. You'll get a headset or some kind of thing, and as you're going around to the exhibits, you can press a button and hear things. Whereas I think some do it as its own track, right? So it's specifically audio description that is meant for blind and visually impaired audiences.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
I'm trying to think of other things that jump out at me. I can't. People have done dance performances.
Mm-hmm.
What is that group called? The Blue Help me.
I'd have to look it up.
Do you know what I'm talking about? I want to say
Yeah. Because
totally
it's like
wrong. Blue Man Group.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
There we go.
Yeah. So dance
Blue
performances and things like that. Yeah.
Blue Man Group, they don't talk, so it's got to be a lot of flexibility there for audio description, working around the sound effects or whatever, right?
Cirque du Soleil performances.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. One of my favorites was there was a children's book author who had images in her children's book, and she also was a voice talent, was trying to find some opportunities. I'm like, do audio description for your own book, do an audio book with descriptions of the images. So it seems like there's so many, any place has that has visual description. That's that'll work.
Yeah. And I think that audio description certainly has been formalized, but really walk down the street with anybody and you get, audio description. If you're a blind person and you're walking down a street and you're asking somebody, hey, what are you seeing? You get a subjective version, right? Because you get their perspective. So I think that, growing up blind, that was not the term that was used, of course. I was born in the mid 70s. Uh-huh. So, we didn't have that term, but like I said, if you're anywhere with anybody, you get their perspective on what it's all about.
As a narrator, do you bring your perspective to the narration?
Yeah, I think that inevitably happens, but I also think it depends on how the description is being done. Because sometimes I have the media, so I can actually hear the TV show or the movie or whatever it is that I'm describing, and that informs my narration in a way that when I'm just reading description without the media, that information is not necessarily there, right? I don't have the Foley behind me. I don't have the dialogue to get a sense of not only what's being said, but how it's being said and where is that scene set. And some of that you can guess even if you don't have the media based on what the description is, but sometimes you just don't know.
Mm-hmm. And so that those informing piece elements, you said Foley, dialogue, music, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That, can I call you a voice talent? Do you prefer voice actor? Or?
Absolutely.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Voice talent, voice actor, whatever. And I guess I should say, because I didn't really introduce myself for who it is, what do I do? Audio description is this small piece of what I do. I can't say that on every day I'm describing because it's not happening. I can go weeks without doing audio description. It's a fraction of my voiceover work, which doesn't mean I don't love it, but it is one voiceover niche in a big voiceover pond, if you will.
Sure. And does that pond inform the niche? In other words, when you do voiceover work as a talent, whether it's a commercial or animation or something that you're bringing your skills to the mic, does that inform audio description, the way that you perform it? Is there? We've got different perspectives on this, and I was curious where you are.
I think it's really fun to be on both sides of it. I've done corporate description, so like where I'm describing a corporate video that somebody else has voiced, which is fun because I do a lot of corporate reading, right? Just whether it's an explainer or anthems or manifestos or whatever the corporate thing is. And so I've done it where I have been the voice of the video and then been the voice of the audio description. Not in the same video, but on either side, and it's interesting to be on the other side of it, and it's really fun. And it's also, look, I mean, let's face it. Sometimes there is no time to say everything that is going on. I mean, I would say that the thing to know about audio description is it's what would I call it? Audio description doesn't give somebody all of the information. because sometimes there's just no time to. I remember when I first heard a description of a piece from Sesame Street, and the amount of stuff that was going on that they were trying to say all in the space that it was happening. And then realizing too that there was more stuff that wasn't being spoken about because again, there's just no time. Right. So, what to say, what's important, what's most valuable. That's an art. And that's an art that, the writers get to deal with.
Mm-hmm. And those writers.
And I think a lot of consumers don't necessarily realize, that there is this hopefully, not always, but hopefully there is a separation between the people writing description and the people voicing description. I know that is often not the case when you're talking about live theater, which makes a lot of sense. But when you're talking about TV and streaming services and things like that, there is a separation between people who are writing it and people who are voicing it.
With that separation, I know there's been a few people use the general term describers, and I've been given that unqualified title before as, Roy is a describer. I'm like, in most of my cases, I'm reading what a writer has given me. That
right.
That, as you had said, that quality is so specific. When one of my favorite examples is the a picture's worth 1,000 words. A film frame was at 24 frames per second, so that's 24,000 words to choose from in 1 second of film. So you multiply that by a whole movie, it's like you got to give the brushstrokes. And I think about sci-fi movies and how many specific elements that are there. I've loved that some people are even saying, there's outtakes for feature films. There should be outtakes for audio description where it kind of stage,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so digressing. So you were saying about the separation between the narrator and the writer. When you're narrating something that a writer has given, is first of all, your voice quality. I'm sure you get it all the time. I could hear you read a phone book. Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of voice actors get that, right? Doesn't that just come with the territory?
Yeah, and it's like same thing with look at your fingers; they're so beautiful. Do you play the piano? It's like, okay, let's qualify this a little bit. That you have a beautiful voice, and you've also developed a lot of acting in the same way that you call yourself a talent and an actor. That you bring something else to your work as when you're using your voice. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, it's all storytelling, right? It's all storytelling. That's the fun of description, One of the first streaming pieces I did was Masha and the Bear, which you can still find on Netflix. And Masha and the Bear was just really, really description heavy. Really description heavy. It's an animated children's series, and it's this little girl and her interactions with this bear. And she's such a brat, which I totally love. She's endearing, but she gets into trouble. But not into the same trouble that I don't watch a ton of cartoons these days, I have to say, but in my day growing up, when the girls got into trouble, they were just mean to each other. You know what I mean? Whereas she just doesn't. It's not that she gets into so much mean to other people as she's just mischievous. That's the best way I can describe her.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And what was so great about doing that show was I got it. I got why the visual gags were so funny. The description was just well done. And also because I had the script and I had the time, I don't know. I guess you can. I've gotten good at, pounding out description pretty quickly. But with this one, I just got into the show And this was a case where I had the media, so I could listen to the show and do the description and put it all together. And it was just so much fun, and understanding how this animated series was really funny. And I think a lot of times growing up, I missed it. Like, I couldn't watch Tom and Jerry. Like, it just meant nothing. Without description, Tom and Jerry is pretty useless. I was a big Flintstones and Jetsons fan because they had dialogue. Mm-hmm. And Fred Flintstone reminded me so much of my dad. I don't think I picked up on that until I grew up. But yeah. But even the Flintstones has all these visual funny things that are going on that have been enhanced by seeing versions of it that are described. I don't even remember what your original question was. This is great. This is storytelling. Storytelling. Yes, storytelling. That's it. And so that was what we were talking about, how it was storytelling and how Masha and the Bear was such a story because so much of what was going on in the show was described. There was very little dialogue. There was a lot of amazing sound design, really great sound design, but a ton of description. So I really had to be almost like the children's audiobook narrator in that one, I think.
And obviously you said you were into the show, so that changed. What did that change for you? How was that? Not that you haven't been into other shows, but I'm curious about this one specifically.
Like I said, I think I just really got why it was so funny.
Yeah.
I don't think of myself as, I would call myself a visual learner in the sense that I want things under my fingers when I'm reading things. Mm-hmm. But I think there's just a lot of sighted stuff that I don't necessarily get because I don't have a frame of reference. I mean, I know the words, I get the idea, but I don't know it firsthand. I've never seen it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How do you describe to a deaf person what music is like? There's my frog. How do you describe to a deaf person what music is like? How do you describe to a blind person what color is like? You can say it, but I don't think it's the same as seeing it. Which doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it the truth. It's just not the same. But Masha was done well enough where I loved her character. And in season 1, the actress who played her they changed actresses in season 2. And those girls did okay, but the very first one, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she just completely nailed it for me. and it was just a fun show. Yeah. And where the jokes would be funny for the kids, but some of the dialogue was written such that it would be funny for an adult watching too.
Oh, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it must have been so exciting to be a part of that. Being a part of that, yeah.
It was.
Very cool. When you're working on audio description narration, I think you've named a few examples. Can you think of maybe another one of a challenge that you faced as a performer that you found you overcame? Like maybe something that either you had assumptions about it, that maybe you tried something different, or wherever you want to take that, but some challenge that you overcame as far as performance goes?
You were talking earlier about it being acting, and I think that's true. I remember doing an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos, and I think I've only done like one episode of that. And it was challenging because I didn't get it. I would never watch the show. I don't understand why it's been on for as long as it's been on. I'm not a fan. So I had to find a way to connect to that and, be in that happy, funny, smiley kind of space with a description even though I didn't like the show.
Mm.
So I think that's a challenge, right? Come on. I mean, you've done enough description. You've had to have done things that you didn't necessarily like what the movie or the show was that you were describing, but there you were.
One of that's making me think, if I may, the idea of you're illustrating you're a professional. You found a way to do it that I think about. Someone made a great analogy. I wish I could remember who it was to give credit to, but it's like when it comes to professionalism, authenticity isn't necessarily the best thing. In other words, if a surgeon comes into the operating table and she's like, yeah, I really don't feel like doing this operation today, and just turns around and walks out. It's like the anesthesiologist is shaking the shoulders and like, wait, what? Authenticity isn't necessarily always applicable. And I think that you just illustrated that you bring your professional talents to it, even if you're called to do something beyond what you may personally be feeling at the time.
Oh, yeah. You have to get out of your own way. You have to.
Mm.
You have to find a way to tell the story, and maybe you're not the one to tell it. Find somebody else to tell it that would think it's great and funny and amusing, and be them for a while. I mean, to me, that is what acting is. But even no matter how much you get out of your own way, you're still you. Like there are still elements of you there. What am I trying to say here?
Well, if we could even go to maybe your experiences, that you find that you bring a really specific quality to every show that you bring, and that the people who are deciding to hire you are noticing that. And it's like, this is such a perfect fit for Satauna. Let's use her. That maybe that kind of casting, and maybe you could even address this as an audience member, that makes a difference.
I think it does make a difference. I don't think that every description company focuses on casting. Some of them do a really amazing job of focusing on casting. And some of them just have an in-house pool of talent and they just pull from there. And, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. It just is. But yeah, I think it can make a big difference. What was the show? There was a show on Netflix that I watched a few episodes of. I think it was Alexa and Katie. And the woman they cast to describe was like grandmother who wouldn't know what was up for a 16-year-old if it conked her on the head. That's how I felt when I listened to her. And it was not that she did a bad job of describing at all. It was just that she was the wrong person to be doing it.
Mm.
Yeah, so I do think it makes a difference. Mm-hmm. And it's like the same thing with audiobooks, right? You can listen to an audiobook and man, the narrator can make it or break it, right?
Sure.
So I think it could be the same for description.
Yeah, and I'm almost thinking about some of the examples and maybe you've experienced this as a narrator, that your voice can be along for the ride, and it can also be a contrast to help distinguish, your voice from the actors' voices. Have you been on, I guess, both sides of that as a narrator?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's true. I also think that one of the things that is really difficult that we don't have a lot of control over is how is the final product mixed. And, some companies do that really well and some don't. Some just seem to duck the audio and, you're either bowled over by the describer, or if the show gets really loud, then the describer gets really quiet. And that kind of mixing can take one out of the story, right? Because then I'm struggling to hear, or I'm hearing too much of the narrator. And so I think it's important to strike a balance. And not everybody does that. But yeah.
And that really brings it back, it sounds like, to the team effort that, we were talking earlier about the writers and how that's an essential quality, that you as a narrator are bringing something as well. But in all of these elements, the weakest link in the chain is anything is going to take you out. And, if you have to fiddle with the volume, that's taking you out of the experience. Is that tracking with what you're saying?
Yeah, or if it just keeps ducking and coming back up because the description comes in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not even necessarily changing the volume. It's just that
Gotcha.
The show goes away.
Mm.
And I think that this is also an interesting thing. Like right now, if you look at the apps for streaming services, you can't be in let's just take Netflix for an example. You can't be in the Netflix app and tap a button that is right on the screen that will turn description on or off in the blink of an eye. It's some kind of setting like subtitles or something like that it's called. I forget the exact name, but there's English and there's English CC, which is closed captioning, and there's English audio description. And it's a whole dialogue box that pops open and you pick what you want. But to do that, the media stops and you have to choose it. And then you close it and you go back into the media. There's no way to simply tap it on and off. And the reason that would be cool, in my view, is if we go back to the Sesame Street example that I was talking about earlier, where there's so much description going on because there's so much visual stuff happening. I mean, it makes sense that there's that much description. Mm-hmm. But it's also really fun to watch it without. I mean, my daughter's 22, so I've watched Sesame Street without description.
Uh-huh.
And it works. Some of it, not all of it, but some of it works without description. And in fact, without description, there are elements that are really terrific. There is a story there that is worth hearing. That sound design, the music, the Elmo and Elmo's world, the whatever it is, the sound stuff that's going on is valuable, and sometimes the description covers it up. And I think that there's an idea that what's going on the screen visually is the most important thing, and it isn't always the most important thing.
It reminds me of a woman in I want to say London, I'm not sure exactly, but she had an article about, and this isn't going to put us out of a job, but she was involved in the creation of content, a film, a short, a series, where the sound design was deliberately created so that it wouldn't need audio description. So you could hear the seagulls in the water, and that saves the audio description narrator from saying she walks on a beach. That there's those kinds of that kind of sound design, and God, that's so beautiful. That's really exciting. And again, not to put us out of a job, but I'm so sorry. It's so easy to digress. Is there?
No, I know. No, I don't think it does put us out of a job, and I don't think that you can write a show solely based on, making sure that everything is designed with the audio described stuff in mind. I think that there is a place for audio description writers to be involved in earlier stages rather than, writing from the VAMs that come in. Do you know what VAM stands for?
I was about to ask. I was going to.
The videos that aren't finals, like there may be changes that happen later on, but
Gotcha.
they're the ones that you get to write to. Do you know what,
Okay.
you know what I'm talking?
I'm with you now.
Yeah, and because by the time we get it, so much has been done. And I think, I think the people that I still think that the people who are hiring audio description companies don't really realize that there is a huge difference between closed captioning and audio description. It's not the same process in any way, shape, or form, right? You're not just typing up what's being spoken on the screen. You are actively making decisions about what to describe and what to leave out, and how to place that. How much time do you have between dialogue and sounds that are obvious? There's a lot of work. And the minute somebody goes in there and makes an edit, you might have to change what you said. Mm-hmm. So yeah, to put a description writer early on in the process would be really cool.
Are there any other, gosh, we've covered so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your work as a narrator or as a performer or anything within the world of audio description?
Yeah, probably. Too much.
Oh yeah, here we go.
I think I want to say that if I had to talk, let's see, I think that there is audio description and then there is just description. And what I mean by that is not everything needs audio. So the example is everybody go look up National Braille Press and buy yourself a print Braille book, print Braille children's book. National Braille Press has a children's Braille book club. And so in these print Braille books, you have pages with, all the print on them and the pictures. And then you have pages with the Braille that, of course, is the same text as the print. And then there are brailled descriptions of the pictures. So they are just words that describe the pictures. That's not audio, but it is still valid and it is still important. And I can remember when my daughter was little, sitting together with her and reading in the same way that a sighted parent would read to their child, and being able to have really fun discussions because she was looking at those pictures. But I also, because there were descriptions of the pictures, I knew what the picture was, right? Mm-hmm. So I could talk to her about that picture. I could start the conversation. I could ask about things in the picture that I knew were in the picture because of the description that was written there. And I think, it's been pretty well established that people learn in different ways. And when we look at educational settings, if all sighted kids had was the audio of something, everybody might freak out. But when blind kids are given the audio of something, that's supposed to be enough. And I would just point out that sometimes it's just great to have it in your hands and under your hands and being able to look at it. That was one of the things that really stood out for me doing the Washington Monument. Like, if I had just gone to the Washington Monument and listened to the audio description, I would have retained some of it and it would have been terrific and I would have appreciated that it was there. But to have that script, if you're standing in front of a monument, or even if you're looking at a book, sometimes you stop and you go back and you reread a paragraph, or you look at that picture for a while. And one can rewind and hear the audio description again, but it's just this noise sometimes that's in my ear, and I just want to see it under my fingers. And when I did that Washington Monument script, I had the time to really sit in those moments and go, wow, that is a really cool stone. You know what I mean? And really just read it to myself slowly. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and it sounds like absorbing it in a different way.
Yeah. And my way of absorbing is not always listening.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm just trying to say that audio is not always the perfect way to go. Sometimes I will go, there are still a lot of things that are not audio described. But it's 2020 and you can go onto the internet and you can look up summary episodes or things like that, and figure out, what happened? What'd you miss? What was going on? You can read how somebody writes their episode summary and figure out what wasn't there in the description. And while it isn't quite the same as having description, there's a lot of information available. One of the things that's really fun about description is credits. I'm terrible at remembering actors' names and things like that because I didn't grow up reading credits because audio description wasn't there. So credits are challenging. Oh, they're one of those challenging things, right? Pronouncing all those names and digging around YouTube and, places like that to try and you've got to have experienced this, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a...
Yeah, because the studios don't give us pronunciation guides.
All the
right?
jokes about reading the phone book is...
Oh, yeah, right? So they're really hard. And if I have a feature film, it's like one of the first things I want to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I want to get through all these horrible credits.
But to your point,
really cool.
If you
they're
were
really cool.
Like, just as just a random experiment, if you were given the opportunity to choose audio description or a printed out Braille script of an audio description script, that would be a different experience of a film or series, right? I'm thinking about your experience at the Washington Monument, that feeling the experience quietly while you're reading Braille is different than hearing the audio description. I'm wondering if there's a parallel to a TV show that if you could read along while you're watching it.
I think some people might feel like that. For me, a TV show is entertainment, and I don't want to work that hard.
Gotcha. Fair enough. I'm with you. That's it. That's such a great answer. Okay. Right. Got it.
But
absorbing it.
But for something like an educational setting, I've done, when you start talking about science classes and the audio description that comes along with trying to describe the picture of the chemistry, goodness. Come on, really? I want to read that. I want to absorb that by looking at it.
There we go.
And again, the children's book example, I want to read that. I want to read those things. So I do think there are places where the Braille copy is valuable and superior to the audio. But boy, no, with a TV show or movie, no, I don't want to work that hard.
Gotcha. Oh, that's great.
Or here's what I want to do. I want the description so I know, about the basics of what's going on. But then I get to have the discussion about what I think. There is no time. There is never enough time to describe everything, right? So there's still always, if you have a favorite actor, you probably know what that actor looks like. Like you could describe them off the top of your head. Right. So for me, same idea. Like there are voices that I know, but that doesn't mean that I know what they look like. So to be able to ask those questions, and I mean, this is when we get into services like IRA, which is a service that people who are blind can use, and we call up and get trained agents who can do anything from. I dropped my AirPods on the floor. I have to do that every now and then, they just, out they go and they skitter across the floor. I'm digging around looking for them. So anything with it. So the service is done through my iPhone, right? So the IRA agent can see out the camera of my iPhone live where I am, and I can move that camera around. So I can lay out 5 cartons of ice cream, and I am looking for my favorite one, and I can ask them to read what's in front of me, or I can have them help me find an AirPod, or I can walk through the airport with them to find the gate that I'm going to if I'm going to fly somewhere, and they can see the signage in the airport because they're looking through the camera of my phone, or I can call up and say, okay, we're going to watch this video and you're going to describe what's going on. And in that case, that's really fun because unlike the audio description that is written and pre-recorded, the description you get from different people is the same as what I was talking about earlier when you're walking down the street. You get that perspective. And I'm telling you, if I can get a little bit graphic here, if you walk down the New York City street with person 1 versus person 2, person 1 may not tell you about the sex shop that you're passing, or the homeless guy, or the barf in the middle of the sidewalk, or you know what I mean? Like
a little bit of censorship from the perspective that they're coming from.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's particularly interesting for those of us who grew up blind. I mean, if you were formerly sighted, you have a different sense of the world than someone who has grown up blind, because you have a. As I got older, I sort of got the idea of walking down the street with different people and getting that different perspective. And that different perspective is really, really fun. One of the coolest stories I can tell about that is when I designed my logo. I have no concept of graphic design. I avoided it like the plague for a long, long time. I was like, oh, this is going to take forever. How is somebody going to describe? What are we going to do? And I would call Ira and have an agent look at, 9 or 10 different designs and narrow down the few that they liked. And then I would say, all right. And they would describe them to me and what they liked about them and why. It was very, very subjective. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to call back. Don't answer. And I'm going to get a different person. And I would go through 5 different people and, take those same 9 or 10 designs and have these people subjectively narrow down what is their opinion, what did they like, what did they not like, and then based on that feedback, give the designer feedback and iterate and then do it all again until we ended up with something that was the final outcome. Took a while.
It really sounds like your IRA focus group meets, like you're even calling them agents. It sounds like the MI6 assistants to you.
Well, they are called agents. They are, like how you would say customer service agent, sure. Right? It's the same idea. They are IRA agents. That is what the company calls them.
Capitalizing the letter A because they sound awesome.
Yeah. They do a really great job. They do a terrific job. It's a really valuable service. And their perspective, sometimes that very subjective perspective, is valuable and really fun.
Bar for sex shops or but I get joking aside, I get the differences that brings a new filter almost. Yeah,
because the world can be pretty saccharine.
Wow.
I grew up white, middle class, right? So if I walk down the street with my mother, what she's going to talk to me about is very different than if I walk down the street with a friend of mine or my daughter even. So, yeah.
This is great. Is there anything? Right? How can people reach you?
How can people reach me? I'm everywhere. I hate social media. I don't know what it is with me and social media. I need to get over hating social media. It's a rabbit hole, and I just feel like I start to go down it, and then everything closes in and feels it's just so much. But I am on Facebook and I am on Twitter as Satauna H, and I'm on Facebook. Just type in my name. A good grief. I mean, Satauna is a pretty uncommon name.
Sure.
You can so you can always email me at Satauna, SATAUN, like November, SATAUNA @gmail.com. And my website is www.satauna.com. And I'm on Instagram too, and I do the alt text descriptions on my Instagram.
Very cool.
So my cat pictures are described.
Excellent. It's just one advanced settings click away. One of my favorite things was
it is
right.
Yes. Well, it is one advanced settings click away. But look, here's the thing: if you do any kind of scheduled Instagram postings, right? There's this really interesting blog from. There's an app called Planoly. Are you familiar with Planoly?
No.
Okay, Planoly is this app that you can use to schedule your Instagram posts and that kind of thing. And there's a blog post where they talk about how Instagram has made alt text available for blind people, and isn't that wonderful? Yeah, it's wonderful, except that you can't use it within their app.
Oh, you're kidding.
No. So you can't pre-schedule anything that you want to release with alt text because that's not how their app works.
Huh.
So they're so happy about accessibility, except when they actually have to do it, in which case they don't. So
work in progress, right?
There you go.
Gotcha. Oh, thanks again for being a part of this. This has been a wonderful conversation, Satauna. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I feel like we have been all over the map. And
we did it, right? But
yeah, I mean, it's messy.
It is messy.
Really messy.
There's so much to it. We need a part 2.
Yeah. But thank you so much for inviting me. This was so much fun and really great.
Oh, very cool. Big smiles on this side too.
Yeah. And stay well and safe and healthy.
Thanks. Thank you, Satauna. Will do. And the same to you.
All right.